welcome back to CTN. I'm your host, Robert Van Sluten. Let's get started. I just created a single view application and I'm in the storyboard. So far, this is really the only template we used other than a short demo of a few others a while back. And we're going to move away from that. I wanted to say a few things about terminology, though. A lot of documentation refers to applications that have multiple screens of information, such as most of them, even the weather app, as simple as it is multi-view, which is a misnomer because even when I create a single view application, I'm going to drag in some images, controls, labels, whatever. So I have multi-views. There's a view hierarchy there. Some would say it's multi-screen, which isn't really totally true because the screen is the hardware screen and there isn't multiple screens. It's really actually multi-scene, but regardless of what you call it, in actuality, you really have more than one view controller is really what it comes down to. So that aside, what we have here is really our view controller and our view represented. Now, there are some zoom buttons here, which may have fouled you up before. If I zoom back, it just indicates the view controller. I can't drag anything into the view. It won't allow that. Only if I zoom in. Now I can. This thing down here in the bottom is referred to as the dock, and the only thing of real relevance to us is the view controller representation. This thing here, the combination of the view controller and its view, is really referred to as a scene, and that's why I was saying multi-scene before. The arrow just indicates the initial scene. Where does the application start? The background is referred to as the canvas, and if I back out, as you can imagine, you could have multiple scenes here with interrelationships between them, which would represent the overall structure of the application. Now let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to create a utility application. I've created another project using the utility application template, and I'm in the storyboard. In this case, we have two scenes to represent the two screens of information, or the two views, or depending on how you want to look at it. In other words, the two scenes, two view controllers. And they're interconnected by what is referred to as a segue. So in other words, pushing the button down here will cause the segue to fire, so to speak, the second view controller to be engaged. And you can return back with the done button. Of course, the first view controller is the one pointed to by the initial arrow here. Now, right now, this one is selected, so I could actually drag things in here. I could select this one and start designing that one. Now, actually, in the next episode, we're going to pull this apart and actually look at how this relationship actually works. But instead of doing that, to finish off this episode, I want to look at the tab bar situation. Okay, in this case, I selected the tabbed application. for the template. This type of application is one of the most common, where you have a tab bar at the bottom of the screen that enables you to select between multiple modes of the application. And what you're really selecting between is multiple view controllers. The thing on the left here is really a container. It's a container controller. It just allows you to do the selection. The interconnection here is not a segue. It's referred to as a relationship. We're going to be taking this one apart too in a later episode. In the next slide, to finish up, I just want to play around with the storyboard a little bit. Okay, we're back in a so-called single view application, and what I want to try to encourage at this point is experimentation. If I try to move this arrow here, it'll bounce back because there's only one view controller. If I go over and look at the top of the list in the library, you notice there's multiple view controllers here listed here. Let's drag in a basic one. Now if I go back and drag this arrow, I can point to that one. That would be the view controller that would come up when the application starts, and this would just sort of be hanging out in space. Now, does this have any code? No, it's basically just a view controller. There's no subclass for it, but I could create a view controller, and I can change this class identity, its attribute. You notice there's a whole bunch of other view controllers here. If, let's say, I drag in a tab bar controller. Wow, this looks like the template we were looking at. If I go over here and point to that one, well, I got these hanging on the space. Say I just delete this one. What if I go over here and I look at its attributes and I say I want it to be the initial? Well, no point there. I'm just playing around. I'm trying to encourage experimentation so that you can actually learn some of the limits and the overall graphical approach. Summer is coming, I hope. Thanks for watching.